In 2005, a demographer at the University of Costa Rica named Luis Rosero Bixby began pulling mortality records for a region called the Nicoya Peninsula. He wasn't looking for a longevity story. He was trying to understand an anomaly in the national data. Men in a poor, rural region of Costa Rica were surviving past 90 at rates that didn't fit any of the models. The expected finding was straightforward: lower income, less access to health care, shorter lives. That's what every comparable data set showed. What the Nicoya records showed instead was a male survival advantage so large that Rosero Bixby partnered with researchers at UC Berkeley to verify it. Men aged 60 in Nicoya had double the probability of reaching 90 compared to men the same age in the rest of Costa Rica. And when the team measured the biological mechanism behind that survival advantage, what they found wasn't a gene. It wasn't a hospital. It was three foods that almost nobody in the Western world still eats regularly. If you're over 55, those three foods are the most relevant nutritional finding documented in the last 2 decades. And in the next 20 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why. Here's what the supplement industry did with the same research. When scientists identified the cellular mechanism explaining the Nicoya survival data, a process called autophagy, the body's internal cleaning system, the industry built a $2 billion product category around it. NAD plus supplements, NMN capsules, autophagy activators priced at $80 to $120 a month. The logic was clean. If the mechanism involves a specific molecule, sell the molecule. What that logic missed is the part the Nicoya data actually showed. The centenarians in Rosero Bixby's cohort weren't taking precursors. They were eating a specific sequence of foods that provided those precursors in a bioavailable form, combined with activators the supplements don't contain. Consumed in a pattern that runs the mechanism continuously rather than in a single daily dose. The supplement gave you the ingredient, the Nicoya diet gave you the process. Those are not the same thing. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why, and you'll have a complete three-tier system for replicating what the data documented. I'll also tell you the ingredient the researchers identified that no dietitian mentions and why it may be the most important element in the entire system. The first section is the foundation, the food that starts the cellular cleaning process, and why the version most people eat doesn't work. The second is the amplifier, a counterintuitive combination that the Nicoya data shows multiplies the effect of the first food and why the modern substitute for it does the opposite. The third is what the research found that surprised even the scientists, the practice that ties the system together and that costs nothing to implement. Let's start with what the UC Berkeley team found when they went beyond the mortality records and looked at what these men were actually eating. Every morning in Nicoya, the same breakfast, not occasionally, not as a cultural habit that varies by family. The meal logs in the Rosero Bixby study documented it consistently across the centenarian cohort. Tortillas made from nixtamalized corn, black beans, and sometimes an egg. That's it. No protein shake, no fortified cereal, no multivitamin on the side. The same meal eaten at roughly the same time, maintained across 6 and 7 decades of the men's lives. When the research team looked at what that meal was doing at the molecular level, the first thing they found was niacin, vitamin B3, in a form that processed food cannot replicate. Nixtamalization is the process of soaking dried corn in an alkaline solution, traditionally limestone water, before grinding it into dough. Indigenous communities in Mesoamerica developed it thousands of years ago. What it does biochemically is break the chemical bonds that lock niacin inside the corn kernel, making it bioavailable, meaning your body can actually absorb and use it. Regular corn flour, the kind used in commercial tortillas and most processed corn products, skips this step. The niacin stays locked. You eat it, and most of it passes through. Nixtamalized corn, masa, the real dough, releases it. And niacin is the direct dietary precursor to NAD+. NAD+ is the molecule the supplement industry is selling at $80 a month. It's the molecule that fuels the mitochondria, the energy generators inside every cell, and that activates the sirtuins, a class of proteins that regulate cellular repair. When NAD+ levels drop, which they do steadily after 40, cellular maintenance slows. Damage accumulates faster than it gets cleared. The Nicoya men were getting a continuous bioavailable supply of the precursor for that molecule from 2 tortillas at breakfast every single day. Here's the test. Think about the last time you ate corn. Was it corn on the cob? Canned corn? A corn chip? A flour tortilla labeled as corn? None of those are nixtamalized. Now think about whether you've noticed a consistent fatigue pattern in the afternoon. Not tired from exertion, but a kind of cellular flatness that sleep doesn't fully resolve. That's not a diagnostic, but it's the signal the Nicoya data points toward. The body running a NAD plus deficit because the precursor has been absent from the diet for years. The connection is direct. Tier 1 starts here. Replace one processed grain in your day with real nixtamalized corn. That means masa, not corn flour, not polenta, not grits. Masa is the dough made from nixtamalized corn. In most cities now, it's available at Latin grocery stores and increasingly at mainstream supermarkets. 2 small tortillas made from masa contain more bioavailable niacin than a standard B-complex supplement at a fraction of the cost. That's the first step. Eat them at breakfast, the same time the Nicoya centenarians did, because timing relative to your overnight fast matters. And I'll explain exactly why in the third section. The most common mistake at this stage is buying corn tortillas that are labeled made with corn, but use masa harina, dehydrated corn flour, rather than fresh masa. The nixtamalization is intact in masa harina to a degree, but the bioavailability is lower. Fresh masa or stone-ground nixtamalized tortillas are the target. In week 1, you're not looking for a transformation. You're looking for a baseline, a slightly more consistent energy level through the morning. That's the first signal the mechanism is running. This is the first layer, the specific food the researchers identified as the active element, the one that multiplied the NAD plus effect in the Nicoya data and that most people would never guess. I'll name it near the end of the video. It wasn't the corn. Now to the second food, and this is where the data gets counterintuitive, because what the Rosero-Bixby study documented wasn't just that Nicoya men ate black beans. It was that they ate them at the same meal as the nixtamalized corn, and that the combination produced an effect neither food produced alone. Black beans contain 2 things that matter here. The first is anthocyanins, the compounds that give the beans their dark color. Anthocyanins are a class of polyphenol that in the concentrations found in black beans have been documented to regulate IGF-1. IGF-1 is insulin-like growth factor 1, a hormone that promotes cellular growth. In younger people, high IGF-1 is normal and necessary. After 60, chronically elevated IGF-1 is associated with faster cellular aging and increased risk of conditions involving uncontrolled cell proliferation. A 2019 study published in the journal Nutrients, led by Luca and colleagues, documented that the specific anthocyanin profile in black beans, distinct from blueberries, from red cabbage, from other anthocyanin sources, suppressed IGF-1 signaling and simultaneously activated intestinal autophagy, the cleaning process running specifically in the tissue that determines what gets absorbed into the bloodstream. The second thing black beans provide is soluble fiber, the kind the Nicoya men were getting from a meal they ate every single day for decades. Half a cup delivers more soluble fiber than most people consume in an entire day on a standard Western diet. That fiber forms a chemical layer in the lower digestive tract. It ferments, and the fermentation maintains the integrity of the gut lining itself, the barrier that determines what crosses from digestion into the bloodstream. When that barrier holds, the bacterial products that drive systemic inflammation stay contained. What researchers now call inflammaging, the chronic low-grade inflammatory state that accelerates biological aging, is directly linked to how permeable that barrier becomes over time. The Nicoya data predated microbiome science by decades, but the daily meal was doing exactly what the science would later describe, feeding the barrier that keeps inflammation local instead of systemic. Here's the modern trap. The mainstream recommendation for gut health over 60 is probiotic supplements, a category worth over $4 billion annually. The logic is the same as with NAD+. Identify the desired outcome, sell a product associated with it. The problem is mechanistic. Probiotic supplements introduce bacterial strains, Black beans feed the bacterial ecosystem that already lives in your gut. A probiotic without the substrate to sustain it, the soluble fiber, produces a transient effect at best. The 2019 Luca study was specifically designed to test this comparison. Participants who consumed the black bean anthocyanin and fiber combination showed sustained shifts in microbiome composition at 30 days. Participants given probiotic supplements showed changes at 14 days that largely reversed by day 30. The food maintained the ecosystem. The supplement seeded it temporarily. Those are not the same mechanism. Try this now. In the past 30 days, how many times have you eaten half a cup or more of black beans? Not lentils, not kidney beans. Black beans specifically for the anthocyanin profile. If the honest answer is less than twice a week, the IGF-1 regulation and gut barrier work documented in the Nicoya data is not running in your biology. That's the gap this section closes. Tier 2 builds directly on Tier 1. The combination matters. Tortillas from masa plus black beans in the same meal produces complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids without meat. The corn provides the amino acids the beans lack. The beans provide what the corn lacks. This is not nutritional folklore. It's the biochemistry of complementary proteins. And it's why the Nicoya centenarians who ate this combination as their primary protein source had the muscle retention data they did. In practice, add half a cup of cooked black beans to the meal that contains your nixtamalized tortillas. Cook them from dried if you can. Canned black beans work, but rinse them thoroughly to remove the sodium added in canning. Twice a week minimum, 4 times a week to match the Nicoya pattern. The combined effect of Tier 1 and Tier 2 together, the bioavailable NAD plus precursor from the masa, and the IGF-1 regulation plus gut barrier support from the beans, is the foundational system the Rosero-Bixby mortality data maps back to. But there's a third layer, and this is the one the UC Berkeley team didn't expect to matter as much as the data showed. Around minute 17, I'll show you why the supplement version of this system doesn't replicate the cellular effect and what a 2018 study found when researchers tested the specific mechanism. It's the part the product label doesn't mention. But first, the third food. When Rosero-Bixby's team moved from the mortality data to the dietary interviews, sitting with centenarians in their homes, logging what they actually ate, they found something that appeared in the data so consistently it had to be documented separately. 3 to 4 times a week, the older Nicoya men drank broth. Not commercial stock, not a bouillon cube dissolved in hot water. Homemade bone broth. Beef or chicken bones, water, a splash of acid, usually a local citrus, simmered for 6 to 8 hours. The acid is essential. It's what extracts the minerals from the bone matrix into the liquid. Without it, you get flavored water. With it, you get a measurable concentration of glycine, proline, calcium, and magnesium. Glycine is the amino acid found in the highest concentration in collagen. When you simmer bones for 6 to 8 hours with an acid, collagen breaks down and glycine enters the broth. Glycine does something specific in human metabolism that has been studied with increasing precision over the last decade. It activates AMPK, AMP-activated protein kinase. AMPK is the enzyme that functions as the cell's energy sensor. When AMPK is activated, the cell shifts from growth mode to maintenance mode. It stops building new structures and starts clearing damaged ones. Autophagy, the cellular cleaning process, is downstream of AMPK activation. The Nicoya centenarians were activating AMPK 3 to 4 times a week through dietary glycine, not through caloric restriction, not through extended fasting, not through supplements. A 2018 paper by McCarty and DiNicolantonio in Medical Hypotheses documented that dietary glycine at the concentrations achievable through regular bone broth consumption produces AMPK activation equivalent to mild caloric restriction, the cleaning process running from a bowl of broth. Now here is where the supplement data matters. The NMN and NAD plus supplements built on the Nicoya research mechanism are sold as AMPK activators. The studies they reference are real. The mechanism they cite is documented. What the supplement trials consistently show, and what the product labels don't highlight, is that isolated NAD plus precursors activate the synthesis side of cellular metabolism more reliably than the clearance side. You're fueling the cell. You're not necessarily cleaning it. AMPK activation requires a different signal, an energy deficit, a drop in the ATP to AMP ratio, or a glycine input that mimics the deficit signal. The broth provides the third option. The pill doesn't contain glycine. The Nicoya system wasn't one mechanism. It was three mechanisms running in sequence from three different food sources, producing an integrated effect that no single supplement can replicate. This is the loop I opened at the beginning. The ingredient no dietitian mentions. It's not exotic. It's not expensive. It's glycine from bone broth, an ingredient that disappeared from the Western diet when processed stocks replaced homemade broth, and that the supplement industry didn't package because it's too cheap to sell at margin. Tier 3 is the broth practice. The Nicoya pattern, 2 to 4 cups per week, made from bones simmered with an acid for a minimum of 6 hours. The recipe is not complicated. 1 kilogram of bones, beef knuckles, chicken carcass, or a mix, 2 liters of water, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Bring to a gentle simmer and leave it for 6 to 8 hours. The vinegar smell cooks off completely. What remains is a collagen-rich broth with measurable glycine content. Drink it as a warm beverage, use it as the base for a soup, or add it to the black bean cooking liquid. All three methods work. The common mistake is using commercial stock labeled as bone broth. Read the ingredient list. If the glycine and proline content isn't listed, or if the cook time wasn't a minimum of 6 hours, it's flavored water. Make it yourself or find a producer who publishes the collagen content. Now the full system. Tier 1, nixtamalized corn tortillas, the bioavailable NAD plus precursor, the mitochondrial fuel. Tier 2, black beans at the same meal, the IGF-1 regulator, the gut barrier maintenance, the autophagy signal in the intestinal lining. Tier 3, bone broth 2 to 4 times a week, the AMPK activator, the cellular maintenance signal, the glycine input that tells the cell to clean rather than just grow. Run together, these three practices replicate the dietary pattern that the UC Berkeley and University of Costa Rica research mapped to the Nicoya longevity anomaly. Not as an approximation, but as the actual mechanism documented in the actual population. What to expect, honestly? In 7 days of running all three tiers together, a modest but noticeable shift in digestive regularity, the soluble fiber from the beans and the gut lining support from the broth together. That's the first signal. In 30 days, more consistent energy through the morning, less of the afternoon flatness, and for many people over 60, a reduction in joint discomfort. Glycine is a structural component of cartilage and connective tissue, and regular intake has measurable effects on joint inflammation within 4 weeks. In 90 days, the pattern is no longer a protocol. It's breakfast. It's the ingredient in the soup. It's the broth you started making on Sunday afternoons because it costs almost nothing and produces results you can feel. The Nicoya centenarians in Rosero Bixby's cohort had been eating this way for 60 years. This is a direction, not a 30-day fix, but the direction is clear and the first step is available today. One more thing, the Rosero Bixby study documented something alongside the dietary data that the research team initially treated as a confounding variable, something cultural rather than biological. The centenarians in the cohort had what the researchers eventually described as a plan de vida, a daily sense of purpose, tasks that needed doing, roles that mattered. Not a philosophical concept, a functional one. People who woke up with something specific to do. A 2016 paper by Buettner and Skemp in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine documented the same variable and connected it to telomere length, the biological clock the research team had been measuring. The Nicoya men with an active plan de vida had measurably longer telomeres than those without one, controlling for diet. The cellular cleaning process runs more efficiently in a body with a reason to run it. That's not mysticism. That's what the data showed. 15 minutes a day, not meditation, not journaling as a performance, just knowing specifically what you're going to do and why it matters. That's the variable the researchers found. It's free and it's the one element the supplement industry cannot package. So the anomaly Rosero Bixby found in the mortality records had an explanation. It wasn't genetics. The DNA of the Nicoya Peninsula is ordinary. It wasn't healthcare access. The region is underserved by Costa Rican standards. It was three foods running three cellular mechanisms combined with a daily sense of purpose that the telomere data connected to biological aging more directly than anyone expected. The supplement industry looked at that research and sold you the molecule. The Nicoya men kept eating the meal. Your one action today, find masa, real nixtamalized corn dough, and make 2 tortillas for tomorrow's breakfast. Pair them with half a cup of black beans. That's tier 1 and tier 2 in a single meal. The broth takes a weekend afternoon. Start there. Drop your age in the comments and tell me, have you ever eaten this way consistently? Masa, black beans, homemade broth. Did it make a noticeable difference? I read every comment, and the patterns people report are some of the most useful data this channel has. The researchers found the anomaly. The centenarians just kept eating breakfast. If this exploration of the Nicoya secret has changed the way you look at the simple ingredients in your kitchen, please subscribe and like the video. We are dedicated to uncovering the historical and biological truths that have been overlooked or commercialized. Let's cultivate a healthier future together. Our next deep dive into the world's hidden longevity treasures is coming soon.